keynote speaker here this evening. He was born and reared in Jamaica and subsequently in Britain, where he received a Bachelor's of Arts at the University of Leeds and a Master's and doctorate degrees at the London School of Economics and Political Science. He currently resides in New York, where he is a teacher of history at Columbia University. He's written a number of publications and essays and articles that include Inside Babylon, the Caribbean Diaspora in Britain. He's co-author of The Poverty Brokers, the IMF in Latin America. He's currently completing Claude McKay, you know, If I Shall Die, The Making of a Black Bolshevik, which is scheduled to be released in 1999. And certainly we are honored to have his new book, and there's some copies on sale in the back. It is called Holding Aloft the Banner of Ethiopia, Caribbean Radicalism in the Early 20th Century America. Let us rise. It certainly is his first time here, but will not be his last. And welcome our keynote speaker this evening, Dr. Professor Winston James. Let us give a united African movement welcome to Dr. Professor Winston James. One more time for Dr. Professor Winston James.
Well, thank you very much. I'll have to come back again. I've never had a welcome like that before. Yeah, so I appreciate it very much. And I've been here since about 7:30, so I saw virtually all that has gone on. And I have been very moved by the experience of being here in your midst. Can you hear me? And a bit louder. Okay. I've been moved by the experience of being here. It's good to see black people together. In fact, quite often you don't see them together at all, never mind together doing something. So I'm delighted to see you here tonight doing something and doing good. So I'm privileged to be here and very pleased for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Now, I had in fact prepared a talk on Harlem's political culture in Harlem's radical political culture in Marcus Garvey's time. But it is obvious that you are interested in Marcus Garvey's legacy and Marcus Garvey's work. So I'll concentrate on that tonight. In fact, I spent my time at the back trying to jot down some thoughts, gathering from the atmosphere some of the things that you might be interested in hearing about. My cup has been knocked over, so I'll drink from my other thing, but I don't mind if you don't. Let me first of all put a little slide, not a slide, a transparency that I want to show you. I hope it works okay. Oh, in front of me. Okay. Okay. That some of you will be familiar with. It's a photograph of the opening of the 19th, 20th convention of the Universal Negro Peoples of the World Convention, Universal Negro Convention. In fact, it was called Negro Peoples of the World Convention. Of course, it was organized by the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and it took place at Madison Square Garden in 1920. It was a remarkable event, and I think what it actually says is very important. It actually shows you large numbers of people, black people, looking on as the convention parade actually organized itself and moved to the meeting place. The slogan is also very interesting because it actually tells us that black people at that time, and certainly those involved in the Universal Negro Improvement Association, were not afraid. They call themselves new Negroes as opposed to old Negroes. And the slogan was, of course, the new Negro has no fear. Anyway, I thought I'd show you that, and it might be important to take some courage from that in the New York City in which we live today. So you can make your interpretation of that. One of the things I was moved by here this evening, yeah, you can switch it off really. You can switch on your stuff now. One of the things that I found moving was the way in which this meeting tried to make connections to the past, tried to make connections to the ancestors, tried to make connections in particular to those who have struggled on our behalf in the past. And I think that's very, very important for us as a people to develop a capacity to remember. It's important to remember. If you haven't got a memory, it's actually difficult for you to organize and survive as a people. If you haven't got a memory, you simply become individuals and individualists. You live for yourself as opposed to a wider group, and you have no sense of a connection with groups of people who have actually struggled on your behalf in the past. A. Philip Randolph, in an interview that was done in about 1970, he was a very old man at the time, he says that one of the problems, it was an interview that was done, I think, by Ebony magazine, he said, one of the problems that I have with the young black radicals is that they do not understand their history, they do not know their history. And I think that's a very, very important point, especially among the younger people in our community. It is important for us to understand our history. If we understand our history, we will have a greater respect for ourselves as well as for those who have actually suffered and have made achievement during that historical experience of black people, especially in the diaspora. The problem, however, is how do we keep our memories alive? Might seem a very simple question, but in fact the answer is quite complicated. The fact is that to remember, you have to plan to remember. If you're going to a shop, for instance, and you want to get a list of things, you actually write them down and take them with you to the shop. If you have an extremely good memory, then you might be able to just simply go in there and reel them off. But one of the most secure ways of guaranteeing that you do that you actually bring back what you went out in the first place for, is to write it down. And therefore, to actually retain our memory, our collective memory, it's important that these things are written down and passed on from one generation to the next. In order to do that, we need to build institutions, or at least we have to have access to institutions. And so it's important that we develop libraries. We actually publish books so that these memories, the things that we want to value, to cherish, and pass on from one generation to the next, we make sure that they're secure. Of course, what is clear about that is that to make that memory secure, you need resources. You need resources for libraries, you need resources for books, you need resources in terms of taping, videoing, whatever it is, whichever form you choose to actually record these things and establish institutional framework. And so it means that the people who are poorest are less likely to hang on to their memories. And rich people and powerful people hang on to their memories far more securely than ordinary people. And that's why we know far more about kings and queens, dukes, duchesses, and so on, than about those who were exploited and oppressed. They didn't have the resources to actually record and secure their own historical experience. So it's important to remember, and because of the lack of resources or limited resources of our people, it means that we have to make a special effort to remember. We have to remember to remember. Now, what I want to talk about then